I'm Charlie Angus, Member of Parliament for Timmins, James Bay, New Democratic Party.
Mr. Angus, maybe we could just start off to talk a little bit about some of the abuse you have experienced online and when it first started.
Well, I've been well over 20 years in public life. I've knocked on every door in my region countless times. I've been in confrontational situations as part of my job, but what I've seen just in the last few years is something very, very different. It began during the final days of COVID. It began during Convoy, my first death threat, and then the second, and then the online abuse of like sort of this toxic pool of hate that continued to build. And then it began to appear in real life situations. So there's this atmosphere now of toxicity and rage where threat has become a normal way of engaging with public officials.
When you started first experiencing the online abuse, what did you do about it?
The very first times I received online abuse, I sometimes reached out to the person and said, well, why are you talking like that? But then I would be inundated. There's times when there's sort of like, almost like a concerted campaign to just drive you off Twitter or drive your Facebook into the ground, and you can't keep up. So it's in the morning, I get up, I get a cup of coffee, and I block, so that the people who are on my site are people who want to talk. But when I started to get the first death threats online, I was really shocked, and I was shocked that there seemed to be so little I could do about it.
How does that make you feel?
Well, you know, there's a crazy bravado of like, yeah, buddy, I really don't think you're going to get in your truck and drive all the way from Calgary to force a barrel of oil down my throat, like you said. But when people are saying you're being hunted, you're never going to see it coming, tell your family to arrange a funeral. Well, is that just an idiot in their mom's basement, or is that someone who actually is going to do it? And I think the bigger area of concern that I have is that it's not threat A or person B that is going to actually follow through to the result. It's when you create an atmosphere where threat is seen as normal, that someone else will act. And that when you demonize public officials to such a level that it's not just the swears and the hate, but the actual threats, it will trigger someone who's probably unstable to do something. I don't think it'll be me that'll get it. It'll be a young woman. It could be a staffer. It could be someone at a municipal office who is going to end up being the victim of this culture of hate and toxicity that we've allowed to develop in our online sphere.
Given that abuse, does it make you reconsider or think about what you do as a MP on the Hill, what you say during question period, when you have a press conference? Do you think it's impacting that at all?
It has not impacted what I say. What it has had a dramatic impact is on how I relate in public. I've been an open book my whole life. I've always told people where I'd be, how to get me, how to meet me, because to me, politics is about representation, and people know where I live. My phone was easy to get. I never announce in advance where I'm going to be, and I know many other politicians have stopped doing that. It's not that the people who come out are going to be a problem. The people want to see we're still great people. They still want to talk about their issues like their pensions or, getting their cousin to be able to move to Canada. But there is a small percentage of people who use these public events to create confrontation. So to avoid that, I go to places, I just don't say in advance. And that has a real damaging effect on participatory democracy, it has a damaging effect in people's trust, because you don't know when you're going to see your local politician. I mean, I used to see my local politician all the time. I used to know where they were going to be. Now, if I don't know, then I tend to relate to them. I'd be relating to them through online. And again, online is getting more and more, it's creating more distance than building bridges.
In your opinion, and you're a member of Parliament, what responsibility do elected officials have when it comes to trying to make or reduce the toxicity and trying to make online a safer place for Canadians?
Well, I certainly think that a lot of this rage politics is being exploited and is being driven very much by the Conservatives. Pierre Poilievre has really driven a campaign of hate against the Prime Minister, and his attacks are very personal, very vindictive. His attacks against our leader, Jagmeet Singh, is feeding into the rage world that's out there. I feel that sometimes as parliamentarians we need to say good things. Like, I'm not a Justin Trudeau fan. I don't like what the Prime Minister's done on many things, but I have online taken the time to make sure I've said, I really appreciate that the Prime Minister did this. Just to remind people that we do have different views, but we sometimes can come together. I have spoken out online many times when I've seen threats against the Prime Minister and saying, this is not how we behave. This is not acceptable. You can disagree with him, vote him out, but don't show up and threaten him. And I think all of us should be doing that, but it's the silence that on these issues that is legitimizing threat and rage as a seemingly credible form of political opinion.
You said earlier that the increase started at the tail end of COVID, and others have said the same thing, and it's just increasing substantially. If elected officials are getting this kind of abuse, in your opinion, how is it affecting democracy, and what does it signal to people that may be considering an elected position?
I think democracy around the world is very challenged right now. I'm a recovering digital idealist. I believe that the internet and all these forms of communication would make us smarter and make us more engaged and more empathic. And in fact, it seems to have done the opposite. I'm very concerned that there are people who don't like how the vote went, so they believe if they threaten you that they will get their way. That's the beginning of fascism. I've seen a real escalation in those tactics just in the last 2 years. In fact, between last spring in Parliament, the kind of crowds that stand outside Wellington shouting at us, and what we see this fall, there's been a dramatic shift, a dramatic rise in the rage and threat level. Whereas before, I would go up and talk to some of them, and they would think I was a communist member of the World Economic Forum, but we would talk. Now, what I've seen this fall, just in the first week in Parliament, has been a shocking level of escalation. So where's it going to go? It's gonna have a severely negative impact, I think, unfortunately, with someone's life. But what's not going to be seen are all the people who just decide, I don't want to do that with my life. I don't want to put my name forward in the public realm. Why would I take on that level of abuse? Why would I put my family through that? That's the threat to democracy.
And you say the impact that you're seeing on Wellington Street, I'm assuming the escalation is also that much more online for you as well, right?
Yeah, you're seeing a real ramping up of threat and menace that's dramatically noticeable in real time. And what I don't see is the tools to address that, to offer protection. I mean, we've had MPs spat on, we've had MPs threatened, pushed, racialized MPs, harassed. There's not a member of the Ottawa Police to be seen for miles when that's happening. We saw Jagmeet Singh in a confrontation where the House Security stood watching. I know many MPs who feel that the most unsafe place for their business, for their lives right now, is here, right here on Parliament Hill. I mean, that's a staggering thing to consider.
Did that have any impact on your decision not to run again?
I felt after 20 years that it was time to have another life, but I certainly, maybe because I'm leaving and I'm seeing the rising level of threat, I think, how could you want to continue doing this? When they target your family, they target your children, when all things are seemingly fair, including, threatening you on a beach or threatening you while you're out with your kids with ice cream. Yeah, I think most people in public life are going to have second thoughts. And again, it's not just members of parliament. I'm talking to municipal councillors who are facing this in small towns. I'm talking to provincial MLAs. And I think that there needs to be tools in place to address these threats of democracy in a better way, so that the lone municipal councillor or the lone member of parliament is not having to face these on their own by dealing with police and trying to deal with the courts. I think there are tools that could be used to lessen the threat and menace, but right now everybody's waiting to see what happens next.